An understanding of world physiography is equally significant for the purpose of the study of the whole of world's geography. Without it, some of these terminologies will go unattended. For example, while dealing with Africa, when we happen to be talking about cratons, shields, rift valleys, orogenic belt, then one does not go on to get to know about it unless someone happens to know about the basics of the topic. The world physiography forms the basics of the whole of world's mapping section, the entire of a map through geography, that is or geography through maps in this case. So world physiography essentially comprises of the study of the features that are going to be found on the crust, the features that are going to be found on the lithosphere, on the surface of the earth, and that goes on to include cratons and orogenic belts, and then the various types of faults, and then the mountains as well as the plains at the same time. So that is what exactly world physiography essentially comprises of. Now, some of these aspects go on to be conceptual in nature. For example, understanding of craton is conceptual in nature, orogenic belt is conceptual in nature. Not exactly that anything about plateaus is going to be orogenic in nature. It's only this portion that is going to be generally of some significance. Now, beginning with this section, world physiography, we'll go on to talk about the basics part of it. In terms of basic geological character, the continental crust is divided into two types of regions, cratons and orogenic belt. Now, you take a look at it, it's going to be continental crust is going to two sections, cratons and orogenic belt. The whole of this earth is, the earth's crust is the only crust on the whole of the planet. Anything that we happen to know about the entire of the galaxy, anything that we happen to know in the entire of the solar system, anything that we happen to know in the entire of the universe, Earth is the only terrestrial planet which has a crust of sorts. Now, when we go to be talking about it's the only planet that has a crust, it's the only terrestrial planet that has a crust, and that is a continental crust, that goes on to convey a lot of meanings. And when we are talking about a lot of meanings, it is about that the processes for the formation of the earth had been very, very, very different and very distinctive from anything else. Continental crust is the upper portion. Its continental crust is going to be 30 to 50 kilometers thick, and its thickness goes on to vary. For example, beneath this mountain, its thickness can go on to be very high. It has a very high thickness. While when you're going to take a look at these ocean crust, this is the ocean crust, then it's hardly thick. It's hardly thick. Now you can always go on to make a comparison between two of these. That is the continental crust and that of the oceanic crust. How thick or thin it is going to be. Now, this crust, that means the upper portion of it, it goes on to be comprising of two sections. As we talked about, one of them happens to be craton and the other is going to be orogenic belt. We're going to talk about it. Geological differences among continents are mostly in terms of the size, shape and proportions of both of them. When we are talking about that is going to be both of them, we are essentially talking about some aspects which are going to be having a greater portion of a craton or a greater portion of orogenic belt and so on so forth. The craton is very, very distinctive. Cratons, shields, platform and orogenic belt, these are the four of them that form the basic character of any of the continents. Craton is the nuclei around which all of the continents have developed. Shields are the exposed portions of the craton. Platforms are those which go on to be having a thin layer of sediments over it. And orogenic belts, of course it's a technical word, but a much more commonly used word is going to be a mountain belt. That is going to be orogenic belt. Coming to the first part that we are talking about, that is craton. Now, craton is a crystalline structure that has been very little deformed. Now, the catchword in this case is going to be it's a crystalline structure. That's the first word. That's the first characteristic. Crystalline means it is made of those type of materials which form the first crust. Now what may have happened was the first crust evolved out of the first volcanic activity. So when volcanic activity took place, the first volcanic activity that took place, that solidified. Now as it solidified, it went on to form crystals. The crystals that formed, they are the one that go on to form the first crust. That is what we're going to be talking it as crystalline. So it's a crystalline structure that has been little deformed. When we're going to say that is there has been no deformation. There has been no deformation. That means it hasn't undergone too many type of mountain building forces, and for a long period of a time, that means right since its birth, for a long period of a time, it has remained static. It has remained stable. That is the third part associated with it. It has remained stable. And stable in geological sense basically means that it hasn't undergone any type of a volcanic activity, any type of a tectonic activity, and it hasn't undergone through any type of an earth movement activity like folding, faulting, seismic activity, volcanic activity, nothing of sorts. And that is a craton. Now in this diagram, as you're going to take a look at it, this was the first. The whole of this region goes on to be the first of the material that formed. Now when this material that formed, it comprises of a platform, that is the sediments that are overloaded over it, and the exposed portion goes on to be called as a shield. So that goes on to bring us on to the study of the shield. Now shields are first, that is, it's distinctive in terms of its shape. That is, it is going to be convex in shape. That is the type of a shape that it goes on to acquire, shield. And it basically means that is all of those warriors who used to be using this type of an equipment to protect themselves from the attack of the sword of the others. So shields are part of a craton. They are old. They are old. That means whenever the word is going to be used as old, that means they are old enough when there was no life on earth at all. And that is why we say that they have formed during a Precambrian. That is the time when they formed, during which period there was no life on earth at all, during Precambrian times. They have a very rigid and stable rock. Is rigid, that means again, rigid means that they have not undergone any type of earth movement. Of course, fourth is going to be stable. That is, they have not been affected by any type of an earth movement activity. And as far as shape is concerned, we said that is going to be convex in shape. Now, some of these shields are going to be very, very old, and these the examples of type of shields going to include a Siberian shield, a Laurentian shield, and you can go on to take a look at some of them in this case. Having taken a look at it, the whole of this portion, this is going to be called as the Siberian shield. That is going to be a Australian shield. India itself goes on to be a shield. This is going to be Dharwad shield, Indian shield. Africa is going to be a shield, all in all. Then you will have a Laurentian shield, Canadian shield is going to be part of it, Amazonian shield, Brazilian shield, what we're going to be calling it as. Whole of Antarctic is also a shield. So it is these shields that go on to make up the entire of the world. So you have Siberian shield, you have Baltic shield, you have again that is the Chinese shield, North China shield, West African shield, Congo shield, Australian shield, North Australian, South America, Amazonian shield, Argentinian shield, Canadian shield, and whatnot. All of these continents go on to be made up of that. For example, as you can go on to find it, that is West Africa is going to be one part of this shield. This is one. Sahara is going to be another part of it. This is West Africa is again going to be one of these cratons. Sahara is going to be another one of them. The whole of this region that is going to be minerally very, very rich, that is going to be another part. And this is the fourth one. Africa, incidentally, happens to be one of the most organized shields that one can go on to know of. That is the example of the shields from the whole of the world. That is a Siberian shield, the Chinese shield, Australian shield, as you can go to take a look at all of these examples in this case. And Australian shield is going to be significant in many different ways. That's one. Chinese shield, that is we're going to be calling also as Manchurian shield, Siberian shield, Central European shield, which is also going to be called by the name of Baltic shield. Africa is all in all a shield, and there are some small sections of it, Barbaton. South American shield is going to be a part of it, and not to talk about North America, the whole of the northern portion is a part of it, and it's an extension of it. Now, having talked about the shields, there is a third part as well. One is craton. Craton comprised of shields, and the second had been that of platforms. A platform is that part of a craton that is covered by a thin layer of sedimentary rock. That means a craton goes on to comprise of that portion that is exposed onto the surface, that is a shield. And when some portion of the shield goes on to get self-covered by a thin layer of a sediment, then that is going to be called by the name of a platform. Now, platforms are characterized by relatively stable tectonic conditions, and they have not been uplifted or submerged below the sea level for a good amount of a time. Take an example, the western portion of Rajasthan, India itself. When you're going to take this example, India has a platform. And which are these platforms? In the coastal regions of India, there is a platform. Rajasthan is a platform that is also called as Rajasthan Shelf, Saurashtra Shelf, Kutch Shelf. All these areas go on to be a part of it. That is in India at least. You will go on to find 2 or 3 of them. That is Rajasthan is a part of it. Kutch is a part of it. Kutch is a part of it, and so on. Dharwad is also Kadapa is also going to be a part of it, and all of those continents going to comprise it. Now, these platforms, whether they're going to be in North America, whether they're going to be in South America, whether they're going to be in Antarctic or anywhere, they have a thin layer of sediment. Whole of Arabian region goes on to be a part of a platform. It's a thin layer of a sediment over it. And they have remained so for a considerably long period of time. These platforms also sometimes going to be called by the name of shelf, that we called as a Rajasthan shelf, a Kutch shelf, a Saurashtra shelf, and so on. After a long time, they have not developed any type of earth movement activity, and the sea that has buried it so as to lead to formation of a thin layer of a sediment that may go on to comprise some petroleum deposits. Most of the world's petroleum deposits go on to get associated with it, if it has been so. For example, Arabian Shelf has been a part of it, Rajasthan Shelf has also been a part of it. The second is orogenic belt. Now, orogenic belts are essentially what we're going to be calling it as mobile belts. When we have to talk about orogenic belt, the first word that goes on to come to mind is going to be that these regions are going to be mobile. Mobile, that means they are always going to be moving, they are always dynamic, they are always going to be evolving. They are mobile regions. They are arranged in a linear track. That is, their arrangement is going to be linear. That is going to be linear, or it goes on to be arranged in an arcuate track. Arcuate, that means in an arc-shaped manner. And they all have been, unlike platforms, unlike shields, unlike cratons, they all have been subjected to severe deformation. That means the third characteristic goes on to be associated with its deformation. Deformation, that means it has undergone faulting. That means so many type of forces that have acted over it that has deformed it, that has completely changed its shape. And because it has changed its shape, it has led to formation of these type of mountain belts. Orogenic belt, the name orogenic has been taken from a word called as oros. Oros means mountain, and genic is, that is the origin of it, and that effectively goes into mean mountain generating belts. The belts where mountains are going to be generated, where mountains are going to be formed. So they are mobile belts arranged in a linear track or in an arcuate track, and they have been subject to severe deformation in mountain building. And you can go to pick up example, the whole of this region is one part associated with it. This is going to be another of this portion that is a part of it. That's called as North American Cordillera. This is going to be South American Cordillera. That is going to be the name of Atlas Mountains. Then here it is going to be Alpine Himalayan Tract, all the way from here to India and then eastward of India as well. That is going to be Alpine Himalayan Tract, which goes on. The same mountains go on to continue here. It goes on to continue all the way into this place. Up till here. It's one of the longest of these type of mountain ranges you have noticed anywhere. And they are all mobile. Mobile, that means they are all young. They are still in their process of formation. And some of them, most of these mountains go on to be having certain degree of an association. I said most of them are going to be young. But there are going to be two different type of orogenic belts, or two different type of mountains. One is what we're going to be calling it as the young mountain belts. The second is what we're going to be calling it as the old mountain belts. That is the Appalachian mountain, they are going to be old mountains. Then in Australia, you're going to be finding one of these portions that is going to be here. That is going to be again another old mountain. This is an old mountain. And of course, in many places in the world, you're going to find such type of mountains. For example, in Siberia also, you're going to find old mountains all in these places, northern portion of. These mountains are variously named by different names. For example, you will going to find that the name of these mountains in different places. For example, here is you have Stenovoy ranges, then Zugzurokotsk ranges, Yablonoy ranges, Kingen mountains. They all happen to be old mountains. That's the name of this happens to be the name of Great Dividing Range all along this place. So there are going to be two different type of mountain ranges. One of them is going to be the older mountain, another is going to be younger mountain. Himalayas are younger mountains in this case. Alps are the younger mountains in this case, but then there are older mountains as well in this case. For example, Carpathians and so on. And then you have Appalachian mountains that is going to be older mountains. In Brazil, you're going to be having older mountains. This is a region that is going to be known for older regions itself. So these mountains are going to be of two types, the young fold mountain ranges and the old mountain ranges. Now they have some basic characteristics. The young fold mountains still go on to exist, and as these mountains go on to exist, you will go on to understand and imagine it. These mountains, the old fold mountains, they abruptly go on to terminate at some places. For example, Appalachian mountains, they go on to go here and they go on to abruptly terminate here. That's the place they abruptly terminate. And then from here, they go on to continue here. Now, you can imagine that these two mountains, they have been joined. They were part of it. They used to be joined together some time back. But now they have got themselves fragmented. But this goes on to show symbols and signs that they were connected together. So the old mountain belts go on to show certain type of a symbol that they have been cut in that place. And that's the reason that they go on to decrease and they go on to show signs of someone having cut these type of mountain ranges. Now these mountain ranges, all of these mountain ranges go on to belong to different type of groups. One of this group of these mountains is going to be called by the name of Cordillera. Now, as you can go to take a look at it, this is going to be all sign of young fold mountain belts, that is Himalayas, Caucasus, Alps, Andes, Rockies. They are all going to be young fold mountain regions in this place. And that is what is going to be more significant in this case. That is one part associated with it. So in terms of basic geological characteristic, the whole of the earth crust goes on to comprise of cratons. Cratons are going to comprise of shields and platforms, and then other than cratons, it is going to be orogenic belt. The mountains, that means coming to the orogenic belts. Now, orogenic belts are identified on two situations. The first is how is it that these orogenic belts have originated, and how is it that they are classified. So the classification of these mountains are going to be on two bases. One is on the basis of geographical situation, and another is going to be on the basis of its origin. How is it that they go on to originate? So one of it is on the basis of geographical position, That is, if we go on to consider, that is going to be the basis of it, that is geographical position. These mountains are going to be called by the name of, one is going to be called as Cordillera. Cordillera is a general highland formed in different periods and by different processes. Different periods and different processes, both of them are different. That is, it has a different process and different periods, both of them. For example, you will go and find that western side of North America, western side of South America, both of these places, the mountains that are going to exist, they are going to be called by the name of Cordillera. They are not going to be called by range. So it's going to be western Cordillera in both of these cases. That's number one. Second is what we're going to be calling it is a mountain system. A mountain system is not like that of a mountain range. Now, mountain system basically refers to mountains formed in a single period and includes many mountain ranges. There are a group of single mountain ranges formed during single period or one period. It's a mountain system. For example, the best example in this case goes on to be that of Appalachians, which is an example of a mountain system. Third is a mountain range. Now, mountain range refers to mountains formed in the same process. That is, third is a mountain ranges are formed during the same period, the same process. Period remains the same, process remains the same, and they are going to be all arranged in narrow and long belt, for such as Himalayan mountain ranges, arranged in a narrow and a very long belt of sorts. The fourth is a mountain group. Now, mountain groups are highlands composed of different mountains with a proper arrangement. It's a highland, that means not exactly a mountain range, it's a highland of different mountains with a proper arrangement. That means maybe arranged in a north-south manner or arranged in a circular manner. They are the best example in this case is going to be that of Jura Mountains. That's going to be one part associated with it. The last is what we're going to be calling it as mountain ridge. Now, mountain ridges are going to be formed of a local folding and faulting. That means they are very, very localized. Mountain ridge. It only exists in the form of a ridge. Mountain ridges formed during local folding and faulting, and they're going to rise abruptly over the adjoining regions. The best example in this case is going to be that of a Blue Ridge Mountains in United States. Now, Blue Ridge Mountains in United States, they are part of Appalachians, and they're going to fall within the Appalachians, all in all. So that is going to be mountain ridge. It's on basis of what we say, that is geographical position. So if we going to take geographical position as a basis of its formation, then that is going to be the name given to it. Coming to the second part of it, there can be mountains that are going to be formed on the basis of its origin, structure, composition, and its origin. So based on a structure, composition, origin, mountains can go on to be of different type. They can be volcanic mountains. Volcanic mountains are going to be those mountains which are formed out of volcanic activity. For example, one volcanic activity takes place and then there is another one, there is another one, there is another one, and there is a constant piling up that goes into take place of the volcanic material that leads to the formation of a volcanic mountain. Some of these examples in this case is going to be that of Fujiyama, that is formed in this manner. Second is, you're going to be talking about fold mountains. There is mountains which are going to be formed when there are going to be two opposing forces operating over it, and they go on to get themselves compressed. We're just going to talk a bit more about it. There is fold mountains. Then there are mountains that are going to be fault mountains. Either it can go to happen that is there is an extension of the forces, and when there is an extension of these forces, some of these portions may go to sink and may go to subside. And when it goes into sink and subside, it leads to formation of such type of a feature. See this type of a feature, that is going to be such type of a feature. This is the type of a feature that you're going to find. And if you can go to simplify this diagram, then what you're going to observe in this case is going to be very, very different, all in all. This is largely because you're going to be talking about a volcanic mountain that is one layer around a vent. For example, this is going to be a vent, and around this vent there is going to be all of these layers of rocks that go on to start getting themselves deposited. One layer, another layer, another layer, and this is how exactly these mountains go on to look like. They look like almost something like an isolated shape of this type of a dome in the region. That's one. Fault mountains are going to be, that is assuming that this was a simple block. This block had been subjected to some amount of extension. So what happens is that the central portion goes on to sink, subside, and it goes on to get itself stressed. It goes on to get self-stressed, sinks and subsides, and this central portion goes on to lead to formation of a fault, a rift valley. That's going to be another part of it. Then there are going to be some of these mountains that are going to be in a form of a fold like this. That is, they were made of layers. They were made of layers, and this is how these layers got themselves arranged of sorts. So they're going to look like that they are going to be chains of mountains, all one after another after another. And when any of these type of mountains they go on to get themselves degraded, the degradation of these type of mountains ultimately goes on to lead to formation of what we say is a residual mountain. Take an example, that is going to be Aravalli is the best example of it. For fault mountains, you can go to pick up one example from India, that is going to be Satpura. That is one. Fold mountains, you going to be another example, that is why go anywhere else, that is going to be the Himalayas in this case. Now these are volcanic mountains, and we have taken this example, that is going to be Fujiyama here. That is the significance of these different type of mountains in this case. Now some of these mountains can go on to be complex. Complex in the sense that is they are formed due to one activity, another activity, another activity. So it goes on to be fold mountain, then there has been some amount of faulting, then there has been some amount of sedimentation, and then there goes on to be again some amount of folding, again some amount of volcanic activity. So all in all, its form goes on to become very, very complex. Domes can go on to be of a residual nature as well, and they are relics of some of these type of mountains, so they go on to come under part of a residual mountains itself. So residual mountains will go on to comprise of many, many undeformed bits or deformed bits also at the same time. Now this is the best way to take a look at a mountain that goes on to form by folding. And as you can go to find it, that is, these are the different layers. These are the different layers that we are going to be talking about. And as you can go to see it, this is going to be one layer, another layer, and you can go to pick it up again, different type of layers, all of them. There is one layer, another layer, and as you can go to take a look at it, all of these different layers, they have got themselves folded. They were parallel layers that had been deposited in this place. They were sedimentary layers, they have been folded. That means they have been compressed from two sides. These were the two forces, through which they have been compressed from both of these angles. This was one place from where they compressed, this was another place through which they were compressed. It is this compression that has led to the evolution of these type of mountains. Himalayas are going to be the best example associated with it. So on the surface of the earth, you have this type of an orogenic belt that is going to be called by the name of a mountain. There are two more features that are going to be found on the surface of the earth. One is what is going to be called by the name of a plateau, and another is what is going to be called by the name of a plain. Plateaus and plains. And in both of these cases, with respect to plateaus and plains, you are mostly going to be concerned with the general nature of the formation of the plateaus, and the general nature of the formation of the plains as well, and their examples, because these are the two of them from where the maximum number of questions are going to be asked to you.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.